Welcome to the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. My name is Katie Dodd, and I'm a nutrition entrepreneur. I spent 7 years as a side hustler before diving into entrepreneurship full time. Before making the leap, I was bringing in 6 figures through my side hustle. If I can do it, you can too. This podcast is for dietitians, interns, and students who want to be inspired to start or perfect the side hustle of their dreams. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to the 233rd episode of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast, online course creation with Rochelle Inwood. Rochelle is a registered dietitian and exercise physiologist. She is the owner of the Dietitian Resource, your go-to resource for reliable done-for-you nutrition and exercise handouts, courses, and more. She's also the creator of the Digital Course Design Program, and she is a member of Blogging Accelerator Program and the Blog Boss Mastermind. She lives in Oregon. She is tall like me, and she is just lovely, and I am so excited to have her on the podcast. Welcome, Rochelle.
Well, thanks, Katie. That was fun. That was such a fun intro, especially the tall girl piece, right?
I know a lot of people, because most people have seen me through Zoom or Facebook or online, and they don't realize until they meet me in person how tall I am. I'm 5'11", and your height,
I'm almost just shy of 6 foot. So we're about,
yeah. So we are tall humans, and I love it.
me too.
So, okay, so let's dive into today's discussion. We're going to be talking all about online courses, and I love online courses.
Mhm.
I have multiple myself for multiple businesses, and I just see so much value in them. And you've really established yourself as the go-to resource in so many areas of dietetics, including creating courses. So I'm going to be picking your brain about lots of different questions for people who are interested in creating a course as a side hustle or part of their full hustle or whatever it is they're doing. But my first question I have for you is, um, actually, I'm going to back up. I gave an intro, but I'd love it if you could tell our listeners more about you, actually. Maybe kind of a quick little intro so that way people can get to know you a little bit more.
Sure, absolutely. That's totally fine. And thank you so much for having me here today. I'm just so excited to always talk to you. So yeah, as Katie said, I do live in Oregon now, but just to go back a little bit, when I was starting in my professional journey, as we all do, we are navigating on this and it kind of twists and turns. I was actually thinking I was going to be a physical therapist when I first started out. So I did my undergrad in exercise phys, did the internship for a summer, and I was like, I want to do something more preventative. And so I started just working at a club. I was doing personal training, I was managing, teaching classes, and all of my clients were like, well, what do I eat, Rochelle? And of course, it was like, there wasn't a lot of education in that area. So I decided to go back and get my master's in nutrition and exercise. And so that's really what that next step led me to, a professor saying, well, do you want to be a registered dietitian? And I said, well, okay, what's that? So it's just kind of that natural progression that occurs, and everything just kind of has lined out. It's one of those things that you don't know what your passions are until you start experiencing them, right? And so when I started out working in dietetics, I loved building materials. And you and I have both worked at the VA, and so we know like how important education materials are at the VA, and making sure that it's the right readability and that's really evidence-based and all of those things. And I loved doing it. So that ultimately has been my journey with, working with the VA, developing those resources for all sorts of medical conditions, including, weight management, grocery store tours, cooking classes, all of those things, lots of curriculum there, but also the exercise piece. And so it just was a really natural transition to build that out for the dietitian resource. Because as you know, Katie, building resources takes forever. And it's almost one of those things where it's like, why are we recreating the wheel over and over again? And so I felt like, why not create resources that are editable for dietitians so they don't have to create them themselves, but they are evidence-based, they are so pretty, and they can be rebranded for their business, but also doing those presentations as well. So that is really where the dietitian resource came from.
And I'm so glad I asked you that little background so you could share your story. And, I love that connection that we both have with the VA. And it's interesting you shared that, because when I was working at the VA, I did a lot of content creation myself, and I loved it. And I remember very clearly one day I was at the VA, and I was thinking like, man, I wish I could just get paid to make things look pretty and be easy to understand. Like if
Yes.
I could do this all the time, I would. I mean, I was a home care dietitian. I did weight management. I did all kinds of things at the VA, but one of my favorite things was to create content and create resources and create handouts. And who knew? It turns out we actually can get paid to make things look pretty and easy to understand. That is the world of
Yes.
online business.
Right. Absolutely. And so that is where that came from. And I am so passionate about it. And the dietitian resource now has 17 toolkits. A toolkit is a ready to use presentation that has been designed. It has all the note pages. It is editable and it comes with all the handouts that come along with it too. And then there are 55 handouts on the shop as well. And all those can be editable as well. But it is going to continue to grow and evolve as I'm building more things out. So I love it. Love it. Just
Yeah.
like you said, fun stuff.
Yes, and I love that you have created this resource. And we're talking about courses, but for anyone who is listening who's like, oh gosh, I would love to not have to create all these handouts, go check out the dietitian resource. It's easy website, dietitianresource.com, and you'll find all of these amazing resources. And my favorite part is that you white label them so people can make them, like edit them, make them their own, but it's going to save them like so much time. So,
Mhm.
little side note, go check that out. So, now, let's dive into our questions on course creation. So, first question, what is an online course?
That is such a great question. So an online course is a digital course that can be accessible to anyone, right? Where you are walking them through a process of solving a problem for them. So the course is going to be broken up into what can be called either chapters or modules or lessons. And it really gives people little snippets of information to walk them through a process. And you can add assignments, you can add questionnaires, you can add all sorts of resources to it. So it's really something that you can build once and offer to people over and over and over again without having to repeat yourself a lot. And so it is a wonderful way to serve your audience without having to do it on a daily basis, if that makes sense. You don't
Absolutely.
have to repeat yourself.
It's the one to many model. It's not just one to one. You're not repeating the same thing over and over and over again. You are sharing something into a computer screen or, digitally, and then people can go through it on demand. And I love that. You're walking people through a process, you're solving a problem, you're serving your audience. In a nutshell, that is an online course. Now, kind of tying into this, why do you think the dietitian should consider starting an online course?
So I love all dietitians because we all have a passion and a reason for why we became dietitians, right? So there was an inspiration that happened to either someone in our family or something that we were experiencing or some passion that we had, like that we wanted to learn more. So there is a passion in every single dietitian that they want to share with the world. And that is really what a course can offer you is basically sharing your messaging in a way that is you, because that's what the business model is, right? We really want to be authentically ourselves. We want to be having fun. We want to help people, and we want to make sure that we're actually guiding people through a process to give them the outcomes that they're looking for so they can be successful and live their best life. So for all dietitians, I know it. I know there is a little piece in every single one of us that's like, yeah, I want to either write a book, I want to actually do a blog, right? I want to build a course. I want to do something where I can share my so a course is a really great way to do that and connect your audience. So again, you're not having to repeat things over and over again.
I love that. And I love that you tied it into that passion piece and helping because dietitians, we are helpers. We are so passionate about helping people. And a course is an amazing way to help people because there's only so much time in the day. There's only so many of us. But through online courses, we could reach more people, make more impact, and even offer something that maybe is at a lower price point than working with someone one-on-one because it is packaged as something that's like, it's a passive income source is what it is if set up right. So I love
And
that.
that is so true. And I think that's a really good point that you bring up is that, the one-to-one model does take a lot of time, which means that it does require more money from your clients. And so this is a great way to serve more people. But again, you're not having to do that constant work and that grind and that burn. So thank you for bringing that up, Katie.
I think back to when I first started coaching dietitians. This was way back when I was doing one-on-one. I don't do that anymore. But I created a course which I currently sell to dietitians called the Beyond the 9 to 5 coaching course. And several people on this podcast have taken that program. And one of the reasons I created it is when I was working with dietitians one-on-one, I found myself repeating the same thing over and over again. And I'm like, I'm charging a lot of money. Why not create a course? When they purchase coaching with me, they can watch this course and it walks them through all the fundamentals, all the basics. And then when we get on our one-on-one calls, we could dive into the nitty-gritty and help them to get the most bang for their buck as far as their investment. And so I know for me personally, it's been very valuable even as a way to complement when I was doing one-on-one because it's a bonus for them and it also helps to maximize one-on-one. So it could replace or supplement. So
Absolutely, because there are going to be people who do go through a course, but then they do want to work with you one-on-one because they have more individualized questions, and that's great.
yeah.
But then at least you're not having to say all that information. They have it already, and then that makes those conversations that you have after the course more meaningful.
Absolutely. And there's just so many opportunities when I look at course creation of things that you can do, of how you can like combine courses, have them independent and on through the geriatric dietitian and my food blog, High Calorie Recipes. I've been very clear on this blog. I have no interest in working with clients, like on the nutrition side. And so I have a course that I created called Gaining Weight Made Easy. It provides value, but it takes none of my time. And so it's a independent on-demand course. Just sold one the other day. And I love it. I love checking my inbox and be like, oh, I just helped someone and I did nothing.
Yes, that does feel really good because, well, it is a lot of work, like you said, initially, because that's going to be that passion that's going into it. But it is something that once it's done, like you mentioned, you can offer it in so many different ways. Like you've probably created other resources from that actual course too. So you probably have handouts that go along with it. You probably have book ideas, things like that. So it is something that if you create it once, you can reuse it multiple times too, and create so many different resources and tools.
Yes, absolutely. And that's going to be one of my questions is asking you about some of the logistics of creating a course. But before we dive into the logistics, let's talk about probably the most important part of course creation is actually picking a course topic that someone will buy because what's
Mm.
inside the course can be amazing, but if it's not a topic people want to buy, we're not going to be able to make impact. We're not going to be able to make money, all the things. So, can you share some more about how a dietitian could pick a topic that someone actually wants to purchase?
Oh my gosh, yes, I think this is the most important thing that you can do first, and it is researching and getting to know your audience. So getting to know your people. So one of the big things that I encourage folks to do is start asking your audience questions. You can do this in multiple different ways. You can do that through, if you have a Facebook community, you can do that through polls. If you have email marketing, you can send out an email survey, and you can do that through like a Google form, right? So you can send that out and say, okay, this is something that I want to know from you. What are some things that are important to you, and how can I bridge that gap to provide the resources that you need? And as you're gathering that information and doing the research, you can hear the constant, consistent messaging, right? That you're getting back from people. And you can look through that and then say, okay, guys, this is what I'm hearing from you. Here are some things that I'm thinking of building out for you. Here are some potential topics or titles. Which one do you like? And then they're telling you what it is that they want from you, and that can help you build it out. And once you have that idea and the title, then that next step is really figuring out how do you share the messaging out to the world. So that might be doing some sort of a conversion event, right? So this could be, doing some sort of a webinar or just a live event that you're sharing some information about how you're going to take people through this process to give them the outcomes that they're looking for.
Yes, I love that. So it really comes down to knowing your people, knowing your audience, and doing that research and asking them. I think sometimes as dietitians, we could be like, oh, I know what people need. And we often go into course creation or really creation of anything in business, and we have an idea of what we are going to create for people. And then we can create that and no one buys it. And we're like, what happened? We have to sometimes take off the dietitian hat and skip what we think they need and actually ask what they want. And then we sprinkle in what they need in the process. But getting your audience involved is so valuable. I'll just kind of share a quick story because I've made a gazillion courses. my time. I have a course that I sell. It's actually called Something to Sell. And I was pulling my audience. I was going to call it Your First Offer. I was
Mm.
convinced that was the name. That's what it's going to be called. And I started talking to my people and I started asking them what it should be called. And no one liked my name. Everyone wanted something to sell. So I'm like, okay, you guys are the ones who will be purchasing it. Let's go with that. So talking to your audience is so important because you can create something that's fabulous, but then no one's going to buy it. So I love that.
Right. And I
Really
love that
key.
you're bringing up that title too, because that is really important. It has to align with like the things that they're searching for.
Absolutely. And I remember when I had that, I actually really didn't like the name. I was like, oh, it's grown on me. But at the first time, like, are you guys sure? Are you sure? But yeah, yeah, the customer is always right.
That's
Okay,
right.
so now let's dive into some of the logistics of creating a course. I think for some people it can feel so overwhelming. Like,
Hmm.
where do I even start? What do I even do? I know you alluded to this in the beginning or earlier on, but it does take a lot of work to build. But once you build it, it's this amazing thing that you can repurpose over and over and over again. But let's kind of dive a little bit into the logistics of creating a course.
Yeah, absolutely. So the system that I take people through, there's like three pillars to it. So the first pillar is draft. The second pillar is design. And the third is deliver. So in the draft phase, it is about, figuring out your why and doing the research with your audience to figure out what topic you're going to do. And as you're going through that process, then you're going to start creating some goals and set objectives for really what you want your audience to achieve. And then what we're going to do after that is you're going to map out your ideas, right? Because you want to be able to walk through the process of what they're going to get from you. What is the outcome? How are they going to achieve the goal that they want to achieve? And that's going to give you that roadmap for your folks. So that's also going to create a framework for your course as well. And that's kind of the nice thing. It's a lot of work initially, but then you have that framework, you have the outline, and then that can help you develop that sales page where you're offering this to people. Because again, like you mentioned, Katie, you don't want to build something out and then have crickets. So we want to make sure that we actually have something that people are buying before you build it because you already know what you're going to build. So that's part of the piece is working on that map and giving that offer to people before you build it.
Yeah.
Then after that, then you're going to design it. So once people buy it, you're going to, design your slides. You're going to build out all of the materials that go along with it. And that's part of the design process. So we've got draft and design. And then once you have everything designed, we want to figure out how to deliver it. So we need to figure out which platform we're going to use. And I walk folks through, some pros and cons of different platforms that they can use. And then we need to know how to record the slides. So I'll walk folks through how to record things and then how to upload it into your platform so it looks all pretty and ready to go. And then what we want to be able to do at the end is be able to assess that program and improve it. So we're actually building up and building better each time we're offering this to folks. So that's the process of draft, design, and deliver for course creation.
I love that. And actually, what I love most about it is the draft section because a lot of people just jump right into design. Like, let's
Mhm.
get this going. But I like that you really encourage people to dig deep into their why and doing the research and figuring out like the bigger picture. And it's just that foundational stuff is so important for everything we do to make sure as we start designing and building out, we're building the right thing. So I love that little process. I'd love to ask you about platforms. What platforms do you recommend, or even the one you might use?
Yeah, so that's such a good question, and it was one that took me a long time to pick, actually, because I wanted to have something that one, if somebody didn't have a website, that they would be able to put a course out into the world. So that was one thing that I needed to make sure it was a standalone platform, because there are options for folks that want to actually put their courses on their website. So it needed to be standalone. Two, I wanted it to be really intuitive, so easy to use, and something that, is well known, well established. The third piece is I wanted to have a community that would link to the course. So a big part of courses is kind of having that support and kind of a hybrid model, right? So we want to have the material, but then also have ongoing support and have you don't feel alone. So I wanted it to have a community, and then the final wanted it to have the opportunity for affiliates, so people could promote people able to sell their course successfully. Uh-oh, can you hear me okay? My internet is unstable.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay. All right. So yeah, so that is the piece, is like we want to be able to have that to be sold to other people that are encouraging folks to come use your course because they trust you and they know that you are building out something that is really useful. So those are the big things that I looked for. So eventually I whittled down to Thinkific, and that's the one that I coach folks through how to use. But I do have folks in my program that don't use Thinkific and they wanted to use their own platform, and that's totally fine too.
I love that. And I feel like when it comes to this online space, there's a million ways to do there's a million different platforms, but actually I like Thinkific too. That's the one I started on. I use Thinkific, but I also use a platform called Go High Level, but that's like a beast of a program. It's very expensive. It does multiple functions. It's like courses is one part of the big picture. And for most people just getting started, they're going to look at that price and be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And so I love Thinkific too for all those reasons that you shared. It's a good one for anyone who's trying to think, where do I host my course? Thinkific's a good one.
I agree.
Awesome. So let's talk about some mistakes. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see dietitians make when it comes to course creation?
Oh, I think one of the biggest ones, and this is common for humans across the board, is we get in our own head, right? So we think we have to have it all figured out before we start. So that's one of the biggest things, is start asking questions. Start today, connect with your audience, put your offers out there, because you're not going to know if people want something if you're not putting it out into the world. And that would be one of the biggest mistakes, is we hold ourselves back. Number one. Number two, as you mentioned earlier, is really starting to design out all of your slides and your materials before you know what your audience needs. Because if you're doing that and you have it done and then you try to sell it and you don't get any sales, then you're again back in your head. Nobody wants my stuff, right? No, like what's happening? So we want to make sure, again, doing the research, making sure that you're offer good offer and people are saying, yes, I want. So those are the two big things, that is getting in our own head, but then thinking that we need to have everything done before we actually offer something too.
I love that. And I feel like so often when people think like, what are the biggest mistakes? We think it's something technical, like I used the wrong platform or something like that, but it really is all this mindset stuff. So embracing that done is better than perfect mindset, getting out of our way and yeah, just getting it done. I
That's
love that.
it.
So for anyone who's listening who's like, okay, Rochelle, you're selling me. I'm thinking about starting a course. What is one tip that you would recommend for getting started in this process of course creation?
Well, I do have a free webinar that is going to be coming up, and that is a great way to get started, because when you come live, I actually have a free gift where I've built out a workbook and a checklist. And it is one of those things that like I said, I feel like all dietitians should have something out in the world that they're passionate about. And if a course is what you want to do, come get this workbook and checklist, because this will give you the guidance that you need to get started. And it really walks you through that draft, design, deliver process and helps you put on paper what it is that you need to do. So the webinar that I have coming up, if folks are interested, is next Wednesday on January 8th. And I will be doing that live at 8:30 Eastern or 5:30 Pacific. And it's entitled From Idea to Income: Online Course Creation Made Simple. And really what my whole intent with this is helping folks get started, because again, that biggest barrier that gets in people's way is our mindset. There's too much to do, Rochelle. I don't know where to start. I'm confused. I'm not really good at design. How do I connect with my audience? All of those things are questions that come up for people. And so I really want to help them get started and overcome that hump with this webinar.
Love that. I love that. And if you guys want to register, go to katiedodd.com. That is my Linktree page, and you will find the link there. So you can register completely free 1 hour webinar plus Q&A so you can pick Rochelle's brain live. And I will tell you guys, I've seen her workbook and it is phenomenal. I'm like, dang, you can sell this. I mean, it is so good. All the things that Rochelle is good with, organization and all those things, she really brings a lot to helping dietitians with the process of course creation.
Thanks, Katie.
So yeah, be sure to go check it out. So as we wrap things up, we've covered lots of things, but for people who want to continue to connect with you, where can people find you online, Rochelle?
Oh, yeah. Okay, how fun. So I am on Facebook. I have the dietitian resource on Facebook, but I'm also on Instagram and I resource as well there. And again, my name is and then if folks are interested in getting into a free community as well, Facebook community called the Dietitian Resource Community, where I go live weekly sharing time-saving tips. I bring in other speakers because again, big part of what I want to do is link people up with resources to save them time so they're not trying to have her figure everything out on their own.
Love that. So I definitely recommend joining Rochelle's Facebook group because she does provide a huge amount of value in that group for free. So yeah, go follow her on Facebook, Instagram, all the things. And as we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to share, Rochelle?
Oh gosh, I just think that 2025 is such a good year to get started. And January is a great time to do it too, because as we all know, it really is a time when people are looking for help. So this is a time to connect with your audience, figure out what they are looking for, and it is a really good time for you to start building out something that they need. So come and join this webinar. I'm really looking forward to meeting everybody, and I can't wait to see what everybody builds in 2025.
Awesome. I love that message. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast, Rochelle. I appreciate you so much. I love the work that you're doing. For everyone listening, go to katiedodd.com to get signed up for this webinar. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Bye.
Katie. Have a good one.